Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Backstage Spotlight. Today we have with us Rachel Louise Miller, who is currently appearing at Standing at the Sky's Edge at the Gillian Lynne Theatre. Hello.
Hello.
How are
How are you?
you?
I'm really well, thank you. How are you?
I'm good. It's so nice to have you on. Would you like to kind of introduce yourself and say a bit about what you've done in the industry and a bit about what piece you're doing now?
Yes, sure. So I'm Rachel. Um, I am in Standing at the Sky's Edge, as lovely Matilda's just said. I joined the cast in 2022. Can't believe we're in 2024 now. Where is time going?
Madness.
So yeah, I joined the cast then when it was doing a stint at the Sheffield Crucible, and then we moved to the National Theatre, which was amazing. And then yeah, now we've got the West End transfer. So yeah, absolutely loving it. It's a wonderful show to be a part of. I feel very, very, very lucky.
So fantastic. I went to see it last week and I was just blown away. I definitely have to come and see it again because
Yes, please do.
it's so good. Would you like to do a bit of an overview without giving too much away to people who haven't seen the show, what it's kind of about?
Absolutely. It's really hard to describe it without it sounding really convoluted. It's so cleverly written and put together by the whole creative team, but especially Chris Bush, who wrote the book. And she won an Olivier Award for it, which is just, we were so chuffed because it's I think some of the best writing I've ever had the privilege to be involved in. Um, and music by Richard Hawley, a Sheffield legend, and then orchestrated by the incredible Tom Deering. So the story is really a love letter to Sheffield, is how I like to describe it. All the people that came to watch it at the Crucible especially, because that's Sheffield theatre. They described it as that, as well as this just gorgeous love letter to the city. So, have you been to Sheffield?
I've been like in and out of it.
So I think from you can pretty much see Park Hill from anywhere in the city, but in the rehearsal rooms at the Crucible, you could see it looming at the
Wow.
top of this hill over the city. So that was pretty cool. When we were rehearsing, we could see it like just through the
Yeah.
rehearsal room, going, "Oh, that's where we are." So it's this block of flat. Well, say a block. It's like many blocks of flats in this estate called Park Hill, and it was constructed in the late 50s. I think I've got that right. And the first residents moved in the early 60s. And so the show centers around three timelines, and it starts with the story of Rose and Harry, who move into the estate when it's brand spanking new in the early 60s. And lots of people came from the slums, much worse social housing, and were suddenly presented with this incredible new brutalist structure. It's very famous as one of the biggest, I think it's one of the biggest brutalist structures in Europe. Um, so they move in the 1960s when it's all shiny and new, so really happy. And then the second timeline is Joy and her family, and she is a refugee from Liberia, and moves in the 80s when the estate has taken a real downturn, as is often the case with these things. And it's about how that story interweaves with that. And then the third timeline is Poppy, who is escaping a breakup in London and just wants a new start. And so she moves into the estate when it's been bought by Urban Splash for £1. It was sold, the council sold it for £1. And it's been completely refurbished. So at the moment, it's in the middle of that transformation. So we've done 2 visits. I did a visit to Park Hill when I first joined the cast in 2022. And then we did another visit this year with all the new people. And you can go into the new flats that have all been refurbed, and it's really swanky. And then you can also go into the bit that's still yet to be redeveloped. It's all, it's going to take a long, long time. So it's like going back in time, this little time capsule of, there's still like tiles on the wall from the 60s or from the 80s, and you feel like you've really gone into a little time capsule. So those are the 3 timelines, and the story centers around this one flat where all those 3 sets of people lived in that flat just in those different times. And then the way Chris interweaves the story is just really wonderful.
It's
So yeah, I hope that didn't sound too convoluted.
No, honestly, when I watched it, I was like, this is so clever. Like, I bet you read the script at first and were like, what is going on? Because the
Uh-huh.
timelines merge quite often. And I bet it
Yes.
was so hard to get to grips with what was in what story.
Yeah, and until you've seen it on its feet, because it was put on in Sheffield in 2019 for a really short little stint, and I'm ashamed to say, I didn't know anything about it back then. It kind of this beautiful thing happened in Sheffield, and just I didn't know anything about it, but it did win awards, so people did like it. It was a big deal, and I believe it was originally then snapped up by the National like straight away, and was supposed to come to the National in 2020.
COVID.
Something happened in
Yeah, I
2020.
can't seem to remember what
What
it
was
was.
that? Went on for a couple of years.
Yeah,
But I'm kind of really, in a way, pleased that it took a little bit of time, because everything happens for a reason. I don't know if I'd have then become involved in it when it did eventually move.
so
So
true.
yeah,
Yeah. So I wanted to ask you, you know how the set is a flat?
yes.
Is that flat based on the actual apartments, like the layout of what the Park Hill apartments are?
Yes, I believe so. Again, I don't want to speak for our incredible designer Ben Stones, but having been to the flats, yes. So I think what I think is just so amazing about his design, and he was nominated for an Olivier, rightly so. It's such an incredible set. He The old part of the, like I was just saying about the part of the estate that hasn't been redeveloped yet is this grey brutalist structure. It's a bit like like the Barbican in
Yes.
London. That's a brutalist structure as well. Just this kind of concrete
Yeah.
monolith, and then the new bit. So at the end of the well, don't just spoilers, but there's a lighting state that happens at the end of the show where it lots of bright colours, and the new rebuilt part of Park Hill is now all really colourful and bright. And so he's kind of managed to amalgamate the two things. So the flat is very, if you look at the set, it's very grey, but that allows for all the three timelines to exist at the same time. So yeah, it's all based on he's been to, I don't know how many times he's been to Park Hill and studied it. Yeah.
Yeah. Fantastic. So you play Kathy and you also cover Rose and Poppy. Would you like to tell us a bit about your track first and then about the process of covering and how that works in rehearsals?
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, Kathy is a miner's fiance. You don't see much of her in the show, so I've got quite a busy ensemble tribe. I think I'm busier off stage than on stage changing. I think I've got the second largest number of wigs, just
Wow.
constantly from, because obviously we're all in all three timelines, so all of us
Yes.
have a 1960s wig and look, a 1980s wig and look, a 2020 wig and look, and then I have a separate Kathy 1980s wig and look to sort of differentiate me from my 80s kind of ensemble look, which is fabulous, big curly Kylie Minogue perm. Lauren in the cast actually calls me Kylie when I'm wearing that. So Kathy, yeah, she's a miner's wife, and you only really see her bit of the story very very briefly. There's a beautiful song. Well, they're all beautiful, but I think it's one of my favourites. It's called Our Darkness, and Nigel, who is my fiance, played by the brilliant Johnny Bentley, starts the song. He sings it sort of downstage, and then you just see Kathy on the balcony, who's singing with him about, it's during the miners' strike part of the story, so the quite when everything starts to get a bit sad, a bit more serious. And yeah, you just see a little moment of Kathy and Nigel coming together, and the hope of their relationship kind of put against the backdrop of what's happening with Harry and Rose at that time. Again, without revealing too much for those that haven't seen it. Yeah, so it's I think that's what the moment's being used for, is Nigel and Kathy, these are young new love who are about to get married, and Harry and Rose are now in a difficult time in their relationship. So yeah, it's a really great little moment in the show to have.
Yeah, lovely little part. And
Mm-hmm.
so how is it contrasting playing Rose and Poppy, those roles?
Yeah, I have to say, it's an absolute pleasure and a privilege. I mean, I will say there aren't many shows out there written about women, and especially women over 30. So to get to play two of them is an absolute dream. So when I first joined the cast, again, like I say, I hadn't seen the show. There was no book available. There was nothing online. So, you Google the show and try and get any material. There was no cast recording at this point. I couldn't get hold of anything. So all I had to go from was the brief about who these women were. And then I got the job, accepted the job as covering both. And at that point, I was the only cover. We have second covers now as well, which is incredible. And all the covers and swings in the show are extraordinary. Like I urge anyone, if you come and see the show and see that a cover's on, just be chuffed to bits because everyone's incredible. And yeah, so I got the script and suddenly went, oh my goodness, they're never off stage. And having to have two of those tracks in your head, I've covered before, but it was a very long time ago. I covered in Les Mis. I was cover Eponine for 2 years, but that was only one part. And that was, yeah, a very long time ago. So I suddenly had a bit of a panic. But the rehearsal process that time and this time has been so inclusive with the covers, which is not always the case, and which is fine because in some shows it's just not possible to rehearse in the way that we did. But we were all able to be in on the rehearsals with the guys playing the leads, so be involved in those conversations about connections and relationships and backstories, and I think that was really key for us to then, when we do go on, and we're going on a lot because people are taking holidays, you get to make the part your own. And I think when you're playing women like this, and I think it's a play with music rather than a musical, if you know what I mean. It's such a beautiful script, and so to be a part of those conversations was really vital, I think. And then I just had to watch and write things down, and then so I got to play it. I got to play Rose 3 times in Sheffield. I opened the show with the first 3 previews in Sheffield because poor Rach got COVID.
No.
It's still knocking around. So I got thrown on for the first 3 previews, which was incredible, but I'd not had any rehearsal at that point, so that was a bit but the company is so supportive. And then I also did 3 shows as Poppy towards the end of the Sheffield run. And so coming to it this time, I obviously had some experience, but the approach to the piece this time, obviously it was a show that's transferring, so it's been done before, but because we had so many wonderful new cast members, it was a new beginning as well. And so the show has changed quite a bit. The relationships have developed in a really beautiful way, and so it's like the same but different. So yeah, it's been really great to approach both characters in a slightly different way this time.
Nice. This might be an impossible question, but which is your favorite role to play?
Everyone's asking me that because obviously all my mates, people want to come and see it this time, and they're all trying to. I mean, some people are coming twice, but obviously it's a lot of money to keep coming to seeing a show. And I say the same thing every time. I love them both very, very much for very, very different reasons. I feel like Rose will always have my heart. I think part of that is because I'm Northern. So when I first read the script, she was the one that just immediately spoke to me. Like Rose for me is a mixture of my nan and my mum.
No.
Just this, there's pieces of me in there as well. She's just such a strong, brilliant, stalwart of a woman who, keep calm, carry on, just sort it out kind of thing. So she has my heart, and I feel like the Rose and Harry story is the beating heart of the piece for me. I think everyone that comes and watches it will have different things that they take from it, but for me, I feel like they're the beating heart of it. But then Poppy is just so much fun to play. She gets a lot more humour in the show, and playing it with Lauren, who's playing Nikki, who's just so funny. It's just a real giggle. And there's obviously a lot of emotion with that part as well, but you finish it a little less broken than when you finish the Rose track. I did it for a week, 2 weeks ago. Yeah, not last week, the week before. Rach had a holiday for a week, and so I got to play her for a whole week. And so I finally found a way to navigate the Rose track without feeling completely and utterly devastated at the end of every day. You have to find some way to leave all that work.
Yeah.
So I honestly can't choose. I love them both for
Yeah.
so many different.
They're both great parts, and
Yeah,
what an honor it must be to play them both.
complete honor. Yeah.
And it was just so interesting you saying like the journey of Rose and being so broken at the end. That must be so hard as just someone going to work and having to put yourself in that journey of emotion as a character, but then coming out of it as yourself and being like, that was work. Now I'm going home. Like it's a completely like separate thing. How do you find work-life balance?
I've never really had a problem with it before. In yeah, I in shows before. No, I've never really. I mean, although I think my husband will say that I do get a little bit sucked into a contract, and I hadn't done a show for a while when I got this. I do a lot of voiceovers, so I've been kind of concentrating on that over the last however many years, and so I'd kind of forgotten how much I just disappear into a show, and he has to be a bit like, hello, you know. So in that sense, it's hard, in that sense, it is hard to leave work at the door because it is all encompassing when you're in a contract and you're in the theatre so much. But in terms of what you've just said about the leaving the emotion of it, I was really really struggling with that with Rose because it is so, what happens to her is so devastating. And again, I don't want that to be a spoiler for those that haven't seen the show, but she does go on a real journey. And I'd forgotten the first time I went on in this run in town, I'd forgotten how much playing that part draws on your own grief. So it really, without you even being conscious of it, you automatically think of any loss you've ever experienced,
Mm.
and that comes out. And I was, the first time I went on, I found it really, I kind of couldn't stop crying for a bit afterwards, and I pulled myself together and then got home and just had a big old sob and was like, right, well, you can't do this every night. This is not sustainable. So what do we do?
Yeah.
And I don't know. I think you just, I mean, Rach would be a wonderful person to talk to about that because she's lived with Rose for on and off now for about 4 or 5 years, and we've chatted about it a lot. She plays it so beautifully. Yeah, I kind of just found my way, and by the end, about midway through the week, I was like, oh, okay, I'm able to. I'm not quite so broken today, and then the next day it was a little bit better, and yeah, I found a way to go. And you kind of have to,
Yeah.
you've got to shake it off. You can't hold that. It's just not sustainable. It's a bit like the end of Act One, Storm are coming. It's this frenzy of anger and hate and volatility, and you come off and you, well, I won't speak for everyone else, but I feel we all do a bit of
Mm.
a move
Yeah.
on, because
Like
otherwise you come off and
interval.
everyone's
Yeah.
a bit, yeah. Let's all go in the green room and have a giggle about something. Because
Yeah.
I mean, to be honest, we do usually all come off and we're all laughing about something that happened, or someone
Yeah.
tripping on such a thing. Two of our swings go into they're amazing. They go into the audience. Oh, spoilers. And sometimes they're like, oh, people didn't move their legs and I
Yeah.
tripped over. They've stacked it a couple of times. So for stories like that, we come off and have a giggle about it and yeah, shake it off. So that's,
Yeah.
it has to be done. You can't carry that much pain every day.
Yeah. I suppose it's like being a doctor and experiencing troubles at work in like a hospital and then coming home and having to just like be like that was work. But it's
I don't
so
know how they do it.
hard.
I mean that's the thing. Like, this is, we're not saving lives. we're messing around on a stage for 3 hours. I don't know how doctors, especially watching what they went through COVID. I mean, respect and love and
Yeah.
admiration to the nth degree. It's incredible.
Yeah. I think careers that demand such high emotion and it's just that work-life balance and like with emotion that's that high, it just will come home with you. Like
Yeah,
you're a human. Like
yeah,
it will encapsulate like your personal life too, because
yeah,
you're just human and that's what
yeah.
happens.
But I think it's really important to talk about it, and because and what I love about, especially in drama schools, I've been hearing from younger people than me, what's that mental health is now being talked about in drama schools.
Yeah, it
When I was there, it certainly wasn't, and even before then, I dread to think how people were treated, or just what was demanded of you with
yeah.
no thought. One thing I've chatted about with a few people in this show, actually, at the end of our last contract when we finished at the National, very much like this team, about how we lost about half the members of cast didn't come back, and so we've got new people. And we didn't, when we finished at the National, we didn't know whether we were hoping for a West End transfer with all the, with the Oliviers and everything, but it wasn't guaranteed. So you finish it, and it's been the same with every job I've ever done. I get very emotionally attached to people very, very quickly, as I think a lot of people in our industry do. And you finish a job, and okay, these people have been like your family for however long the contract's been. Like, I did a show for 2 years, and we were distraught leaving that dressing room, because you're kind of institutionalized, and these people have been in your life pretty much every minute of every day for 2 years, and then it's like bye. And yes, you can see each other, but it's
Yeah.
not the same, and it's not
No.
talked about at drama school. Well, it wasn't when I was there. How you handle that grief, and that yeah, how you move on from that, and pick up on the next, and then that whatever job you do next, exactly the same thing's going to happen again.
Yeah.
It's really hard. So yeah, I'm a big one for talking about it, and holding on to those friendships and those relationships for as long as you can. And it's okay that some don't. You can't stay best mates with every single person you've ever done a show with, because who's got the time? But definitely hold on to all of those as much as you possibly can, because I think actors are special people. Like, I love actors.
Yeah, it's like a different world, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so nice. So how did your career kick off? Like how did you realize that you wanted to do acting, singing?
I think I watched Annie, the film, when I was about 8,
Oh,
probably younger, actually, probably younger. And just, vividly remember turning to my mum and going, I want to do that. And I was dancing. I've been dancing since I was about 3, like, local dance school, Panache School of Dance. And yeah, I've been doing that since I was about 3 years old. And then I started doing shows at school. So I mean, I got the bug early, really, really early, and
yeah.
just, yeah. And I remember my dad was an accountant, so quite different. And we lived separately because mum and dad were divorced. But whenever I'd visit, and he'd be like, "So, how you doing at school?" And I was like, "Oh, good." I was pretty good at school, but I was all about the drama. And so when I think I was about 13, 14, when I said, "Well, I want to do musical theatre when I grow up," and he was like, "Oh, okay, just concentrate on your maths," kind of thing. And then he came to see me I did the Wizard of Oz at school, classic, and I was Dorothy, and it was my first lead role. It was very, very exciting. And he came to watch, and I vividly remember afterwards he'd been crying, and he just gave me a
Oh,
big hug, and said in my ear, "Okay."
oh.
And I was like, "Oh." So yeah, from a really young age, and then I joined, local amateur society, Mosley Amateur and Operatic Dramatic Society. That had all the words in it. MAODS, I think it was called. And I did Cinderella, and yeah, and then was just like, I definitely want to go to drama school. But my A level teacher, Debbie, who's incredible, said, "Do you want to go straight to drama school at 18 after you finish your A levels? Or why don't you do a degree and then do a post grad? That's an option." I didn't know that was an option. And looked into it, and decided that was going to be my path. So I did a 4-year degree in performing arts and French
Oh,
first.
I'm fluent French.
Oh, amazing! Well, I used to be, because after you live, after you live
Yeah.
there. So I was dreaming of, it was completely fluent, and I kept it for about 10 years, and then it's there. I can still understand everything, and I
If you
can I
went to
can get
France,
by.
you'd be all
If I
right.
went to France, it's fine. But when you've had it to a certain level and then it's not there anymore, it's like,
Yeah. Even me,
Um,
like, moving away from home, I speak to my mum in French. When I see
oh, so,
her again,
so
I
your family's friends.
yeah, yeah,
Oh, amazing.
yeah. So when I like, because I don't live there anymore, I've moved away for drama school, I go back and I'm like flick the switch in my brain, I'm like French, and
Yeah,
then I'm like with my grandma, and then sometimes I'm like, "Am I losing my accent?" Like,
yeah.
when you don't
Little
have
paranoid.
something for a while, like it does just gradually, like, fade.
Just a bit of the vocab, and it's just all buried back here somewhere. Um, so yeah, so I did that, and then went to. Then I think then I had a year of. I moved to London and was like, because I was looking into drama schools and going, well, I've got no money, so how would I pay for it?
Problem.
Problem. So then I think I just tried. Yeah, I was just living and working in London, and I went to some open auditions when open auditions were a thing.
I know.
And then I sent my stuff off to quite a few agents, and I had a couple of interviews. I remember this a gentleman at one agency said, "I would take you on now." He went, "But I need at the top of your CV, I just need that thing that says trained at." So he
Mm.
went, "Go and do a year," and he kind of gave me like the top 5 at the time. Go to one of these, get you just trained at, and I'll just be able to get you in the door much easier. And so I applied, and I got into Mount View. And luckily, I got a scholarship because I had no money.
Oh,
And yeah,
great.
so I did the 1 year postgrad at Mount View, which was incredible, and it was a full 12 months. So yeah, it was one of the best years ever. Really phenomenal training. And then I got my agent at the end of that. And then yeah, that's how I
Great
went
journey.
in.
It's so interesting how agents really do look for where you trained, like, even just to get you in the door. Like, it doesn't matter
Yeah,
where, but, like, nowadays that really is a thing. Like, open
yeah.
auditions used to be huge, and there still are some.
There's the odd one, isn't there?
Yeah, but it's so interesting that that is, like, a factor that agents do look for in your CV.
Yeah. I was chatting to some of the girls in my dressing room actually who are a bit younger than me, oh, quite a bit younger than me. And it's been great getting their insight on how things have changed for the better, and then how things have changed for the worse.
Yeah.
And I mean, it was competitive. I mean, the industry's always been competitive, especially for women. Fewer jobs, more of us.
Yeah,
Quite
exactly.
simple mathematics. So it's always been so incredibly hard and competitive. And now, I mean, and especially just having gone through COVID, chatting to people that did their training during COVID,
Oh, I don't
and then
know how they
and
did that.
back out of the industry when nothing was happening. I mean, respect for those that
Yeah.
have and are still going. No, okay,
Mm.
just got to
Like,
get through that.
I struggle with jazz in the studio. If I had to do jazz in my living room, I'd be at
Oh
lost
God,
for.
no, no. No, I mean, I've done a few self tapes. Obviously, they've now become a thing. We could talk about that.
Yeah.
But one of the self tapes I had to do was a dance call.
Oh.
I was like, "What do you mean?" Well, when it wasn't a live dance call, it was learn this choreography. And I think they're still
Yeah.
doing it.
Yeah, they are.
Learn this choreography and do it in your living room,
All the
like
auditions are
on a
yeah.
carpet. On a carpet. What do you mean? No,
Yeah, and then you can look back at yourself as well, and you're like, "I am not sending that off."
no. But the problem with that is the issue I have with self tapes. I think there are benefits on the one hand. You're not having to
There
schlep
are, yeah.
into. You can do it in your own time. You can do as many takes as you want.
Don't have to
That's the
travel.
problem.
Yeah.
The problem with the many takes as you want is you could spend 5 hours on a self tape, and no, I'm sorry, life is too short. I refuse, and I will spend only probably double the amount of time on a self tape that I would if I was in an audition room.
Yeah,
I
that's
just
so
cut
true.
it off and I go, I will drive myself mad if I keep going, no, oh, no, I look awful,
Yeah.
I sound awful, that's dreadful. Because we're all our worst critics, right?
Mm.
And I think it's a form of self abuse having to watch yourself on a self tape. Talk about
Oh.
mental health. No,
It's almost
no.
like you have to give yourself, like, 3 takes, and then you just pick,
Yeah.
sometimes it's just yeah, all the auditions that are coming through are like, "Learn this choreo," like, "Video this," and then you send it off, and then you just don't hear.
And you don't even know if it's been watched.
Yeah.
Like, you have no, at least the one thing about going into a room
You've
is,
been
you know, you've
seen.
physically been, however it goes, you've physically been seen. I
Yeah.
don't know how many tapes I've sent off and I've gone, there's no way that's going to be watched. There's no
Mm.
way it's going to be watched because
Even
they can.
for sorry, even for
No,
drama
so,
schools, like you did it on the YouTube link, you could see how many views there were. One of mine didn't even get any views, and I was like, how did they even know? They haven't watched it, and I've got proof.
so was that, oh, it's, yeah, it's just, no, it breaks my heart. So yeah, I think there's pros and cons to this whole new casting
Yeah.
world.
Sometimes it's best to just go in the room, just bash it out for half an hour, and then just leave. And you know you've done it,
And they'll
you've
be
done
like,
the best in that time, and then you
mm-hmm,
can just leave and not stress about it.
mm-hmm,
Yeah.
yeah.
What a journey. What would be your advice for people doing auditions at the moment?
I want to be I want to be positive and inspiring rather than my default setting then was to go, oh God. Just because I'd love to say, and for some people, this might be the case that it gets easier. For me, I feel like I get just as nervous as I did the first time. And I think it's something that a lot of casting directors and directors and all creative teams in general could maybe learn from or get better at, is that you know, the amount of rooms I go in, and I may as well have never worked before. Oh, sorry, I
Yeah,
don't know if you can hear my cat.
I did hear that.
She's scratching at my
Sorry.
door. I'm really sorry. But if I let her in, she'll just do this across the camera.
Little
So she's got to
cameo.
stay outside. Yeah, making a little cameo. Um, yeah, I think the amount of rooms I've gone in, and you know, there's no preamble. There's no hi, hello, how are you? It's literally hi, yeah, what are you going to sing? And
Mhm.
so immediately you're like tense and stressed, dry mouth. Um, the audition process for this, for example, big shout out to this creative team, it was a delight, an absolute delight. Rob he creates such a wonderful space to audition, and then consequently you do your best work and you get the job, like,
So
because
important,
they're going to
yeah.
get the best out of you. You know, it says sit down and you have a little chat for a few minutes so you can just settle and be humans.
Yeah, that's so
I think
nice.
we forget. So this would be my advice: is whatever you're met with on the other side of the table, and hopefully casting people and directing and everyone are getting better at this. I don't, you know, it's been a while since I've been in an audition space because I've been doing this, but just remember that you're all human beings,
Yeah.
even if they're being a bit short and, you know, maybe they're running out of time. Just remember that they're a human being, you're a human being. Ultimately, they want to find the people to be in this show, so that's what they want from you, even if you're not quite getting that from whatever they're giving you. They do want you to do a good job. They're not setting you up to fail.
Yeah.
Because I think, certainly for me, even now, after being in business for so long, I still go in going, oh God, impress, impress, impress. And it's like, no, they're not. Like, they just want you to show
They
what you
just
can
want to
do.
see you're human as well.
So try just, I will always say that, just remember that you're all human beings,
Yeah.
and it's, and you only have control over what you have control over.
Mhm.
So what you have control over is how you present yourself at that moment. Try and be yourself as much as possible. Be friendly, be polite, breathe, and then everything else, you know, what happened to them on their way in, totally out of your control. What kind of mood they're in, totally out of your control.
Yeah.
Whatever they're going through in their personal life that they're bringing to the room that they don't realize, totally out of your control. What happens once you've left, in terms of who comes in after you and how many people have done your song, totally out of your control.
Yeah, so true.
Just your job is to prepare as much as you possibly can and go in and do the best you can do in that moment, and that is it.
Yeah.
And then when you leave, regardless of how it went, treat yourself to something.
Oh, always.
Always, whether that's going buying yourself a little new top, or treating yourself to a coffee and cake, or going for a cocktail with a friend, just do something good for yourself fairly immediately afterwards. Is my advice.
Thank you. And the last question I always ask the people that come on my podcast is, Who would you nominate to come on the podcast to impart their knowledge, and I'll reach out to them?
Oh my goodness. That's really hard. And I've watched a couple as well. I've watched my friend Stevie. You had lovely Stevie on. So
Oh, yeah.
I watched his, and I forgot that you asked this question. I mean, see, I've immediately gone to people in the show.
Well, go for it.
Um, oh, but everyone. Honestly, this cast, big shout out. It's the most gorgeous group of humans I've ever had the pleasure of working with, and the team, the same with the last cast we had. Just yeah, amazing people. Oh God, who should I nominate? Um, or no, I won't go someone in the show.
Or a
Oh,
creative.
creative. I've immediately thought of someone, but he'll kill me because he's so busy at the moment and he won't want to do. He won't have time. I'm going to nominate my really good friend Emily Bull, who is currently on tour with The Wizard of Oz,
Yes.
playing Glinda.
Yes.
And she is just one of my favourite humans. We did Les Mis together for 2 years,
Oh,
and we're in contact as much as we can be when we're, on opposite sides of the country. But she is coming into, I think this is public knowledge now because the posters are outside our theatre. But when we finish on the 3rd of August, The Wizard of Oz is coming into the Gillian Lynne.
yes. Oh,
So
amazing.
I'm going to nominate my friend Emily Bull.
I'll reach out.
She's a
Listen,
dream.
we've got less than a minute left on this Zoom.
Okay.
So thank you so much. You've been an
It's been such a pleasure
it's
talking to you,
been
darling.
so good.
Thank you for reaching out.
Thank you for joining me. And everyone listening, hope you've enjoyed, and we'll see you next week.